My name is Peter Kamau Gikunju. I am born again. I believe the Lord Jesus Christ for my salvation. I do work for iSA of Africa as a graduate apprenticeship manager. I started out as an apprentice, did 2 years of apprenticeship, and 1 year was in the northern part of Kenya. I was in a church as an apprentice, serving sort of like an assistant to the pastor there. Wonderful experience, eye-opening experience, and since then, gone on to do another year, and now here serving since 2017. The reason why there is a need for graduate apprenticeship program in our country at this particular time is because, one, I would say our churches need a lot of workers. There are not enough gospel workers, and that's just on the plain saying of it. But number two is that there are not enough qualified, faithful gospel workers. So you walk to any church, any average church in this country, and apart from the pastor, who might be a full-time worker, and in most cases might just be also a part-timer, there are no gospel workers in those churches. And so what the apprenticeship comes in then to fill is to provide, one, workers who are available, who will be able to give out their energy and time to be able to serve for a year, but not just workers. It is faithful, trained workers who are willing to be trained to go and do any work leader that you find in ministry circles that is needed, whether that means people who are running Bible studies, whether that means people who are working with children or youth, or just people who are teaching even in the church to the adults. And so graduate apprenticeship program then helps with that, because then we fill that gap in our local churches with people who are qualified, but the churches don't have to pay them because they can't be able to pay them such high amounts. So how do we sustain these graduate apprenticeship graduates who go out to serve in these churches? We believe in partnership, and we work in partnership, and we believe in the 3 levels of partnership. So on one level we have the apprentice, who is that fresh, passionate Christian graduate who is willing to give their time to be able to serve. And the other person that comes on play there is iSA of Africa, which is where we come in as an organization. Our work is then to recruit, to train them, and to give them the skills that will enable them to be able to work, to provide member care for them, mentorship, and to work with them in the course of the year. And the third strand that we find in the partnership here is actually the churches or the Christian organization that we are going to be partnering with. So each of these 3 then will contribute towards making sure that this particular program runs. So the apprentice will be able to mobilize friends, family members, and even other gospel workers to support them with a certain small amount that will go on to helping them with their living expenses on the ground. But also the church that we are sending them to, or the organization, will also come in and pay us more fee that will also be able to cater for this apprentice. And part of that fee is actually just being able to provide housing for this particular apprentice. And the organization, iSA of Africa, will raise money that will be able to support them in terms of training, in terms of providing member care, in terms of just making sure that they are well looked after and the things are flowing smoothly. So that's how then these fresh graduates who are passionate then are able to have a structured way in which they can be able to survive for this whole year. So the organizations and the churches that we work with, we call them placements. That's where they are placed. So we do work with churches, among the largely what you might describe as evangelicals, those who would agree with the centrality of the gospel largely. We also work with hospitals, mostly Christian hospitals, where that work is needed. We also work with Christian organizations. An example is the Anglican Development Service that we have worked with for many years. We work with children's homes. So this is where you have either the orphans who are sent there, and then our apprentices can be placed there to be able to work with them. And we work with other humanitarian organizations that are trying to reach out and to go out there and to serve people with that particular goal. One of the biggest things that iSA of Africa has achieved since the time it started back in 2007, 2008, is that we have seen many more people who have been trained. And that's our first main focus, is to train men and women on faithful Bible teaching, faithful Bible handling. And so we have seen up to this particular date as we speak, over 217 fresh graduates who have passed through our programs for the graduate apprenticeship program, and they have been trained, they have been equipped, and those people have gone on even to graduate from the program, they themselves understanding the Bible better. Actually, we have seen some of them even have almost like a turnaround where they thought they were believers, but now they feel now more convicted that they have been able to understand the gospel. But that's on the individual level of the apprentices. When you're talking about the placement themselves, we have seen so many churches that have been supported since then. So churches that would never have been able to afford to employ full-time youth workers, full-time Christian workers in their churches, whether it's that for Sunday school or even to assist the pastors in their pastoral duty. And those churches have been helped a lot. Some of them are new churches, church plants. I can think of one in Maseno that we have had to send our apprentices in the last couple of years. And that church purely has really survived on the apprentices that we have sent. And so then we have seen the transformation where when you run to that church, then the young people have been taught the gospel, the children have been taught the gospel, all because there was an apprentice who was sent to this particular church. So the effect then has been a lot, but in terms of even thinking these apprentices who have been transformed and changed by the gospel, some of them have moved back to the corporate world. So some of them have gone on to establish businesses. We see a lot of Christian values in those businesses. Some of them are even plowing back the profits they are making those businesses to support the work of the Lord. And so if you're to think about the achievement or the things, some of them maybe we cannot even be able to quantify them. But the reality of the thing is that when you have had 200 young people, young fresh graduates in this country who have been transformed in their thinking, in the way they have their priorities, then the impact is actually touching in this country and even beyond. As we speak, we have a number of former apprentices who has moved on to become even pastors. So right now there are about 4 pastors that we can trace who have gone ahead. Some of them have planted, 3 of them have now planted churches, and a couple of them now are in the process of planting churches as a result of the impact they got in the time they were together with us here at iSA Africa. In the last about 3.5 years, we have had one Grace Point Church that has been planted largely by a lot of people from here because it's being led by Harrison, who is also the executive director of iSA Africa. And I think when you see people every Sunday to Sunday preaching the gospel faithfully and laboring very hard, it is a very huge testament to then the work that we have been doing here. And so then we're able to see this a lot as we see people, even some of them who have moved out of this country, some of them have gone to work as youth ministers, even in places like England. And we see the kind of work that they are doing. And that becomes quite encouraging for us to keep on doing this and going on with it. What are some of the challenges that we have had in running the apprenticeship program? I think hugely has been, one is the misunderstanding of the whole working of the program. So you are here telling fresh graduates who are graduating and their parents have had to sell property to educate them through their life. And now you're telling them to come and volunteer in a program where they will not be paid. In fact, they will have to ask their friends and their family members to support them for a year. That has been a huge challenge, where we have encountered resistance from the people themselves who we are trying to recruit, but also parents have been hugely the ones who have also been saying, no, we have educated our son or our daughter, it's now their time to actually feed us. Is that old saying in Africa that the children are the pension of their parents? And so that has been one of the hardest things to understand. Also, the understanding of mission in this country largely has been, it is the whites who do the mission. They come with loads of money and they're able to go out there and evangelize. So to tell a Kenyan that you can be a missionary in your own country or even in Africa, that has been the hardest problem as well that we have faced. We have tried to execute this program. The other challenge that we have faced, apart from the apprentices themselves and the concept of mission, is finding worthy partnerships sometimes in the placement. So we send this apprentice to church A, but this church is not really preaching the gospel faithfully. And so then there has been that lack of modeling by the organization or the church that we are partnering with. So we are big on, we want the Bible to be handled clearly, but the apprentices we have trained here, they go there on the ground, they cannot find that. Or we are teaching them of being servant leaders, being the leaders who actually want to serve. But they go to churches and organizations, and what they find is people who are not ready to serve. They find bosses and people who are corrupt and people who are not living the values and the standard of Christianity. And that has been a little bit of an undoing of our training, because you're here trying to tell the apprentice, this is the way it's supposed to be, this is what we see, the example of Jesus Christ. They go on the ground in the place you have sent them, and they cannot be able to see that. So that has been one of the challenges that we have faced. In the recent past, from 2019, since COVID came, I think one of the biggest challenges has been the schools sort of went, some of them were closed down, so we couldn't be able to recruit properly our apprentices. So we have seen our numbers go down in terms of the people that we would be able to recruit. We have seen issues of our apprentices raising support go down as well, because many people are affected and therefore they don't have much income to give. And actually mission work is sort of the last thing that many people would give their finances to, and that has been a huge, huge challenge. The future for the graduate apprenticeship program, I think lies in two main areas, I would think so. One of it is training more graduates. So we want to get more as the years goes by. Our staff here has grown bigger, and so we think we have the capacity to train. We now have a facility, so we can be able to train more. And because we see the need in this country as growing every day, so we want to train more apprentices. Maybe in the next couple of years, we should have over 1,000 apprentices that we have been able to train. And one of the things we have done in the last 1 year is to open up our trainings. That now we both offering our training in person but also online. And that does help, and we hope then that will be able to reach to people who otherwise would not have been able to come here as apprentices, either because of their age or because they're very far away. And that has been a huge, huge blessing, even in this particular COVID season, to have our training opened up and we have more people being trained. So that's one of the things that we look forward to. And I think connected to that, the other thing is we look forward to investing more in training. So one of the gaps that we realize is that we used to train apprentices years gone by. After every 3 or 4 months, we'd have 1 to 2 weeks of training. But we realized because there is no much happening on the ground in terms of the training, we had to come in and train them more. Now, we actually are training them every week. So every week, because of the ability that now we can be able to use online training, now we are able to train them every week, a day, a week, and that is quite helpful. And we want to think of training now as something we want to invest more time in, more energy in, and also being more focused in some of the areas like children and youth ministry. So a majority of our apprentices is always given, wherever they go, they will always have the opportunities for children and youth ministry. That's, in a sense, this country, that is one of the areas which has been so much neglected. And if you go to any church, they are willing to give you the sort of just go and teach the children. And so because that is an area we see that we can be able to have a lot of impact on, then we want to sharpen our training so that we teach those people more and more. What we do with our senior citizens, one of the programs we have been running is Zootopia Course that generally targets pastors who have been preaching for years, giving them a bit of a refresh course for them. And so one of the ways in which then we think of our senior citizens by equipping these pastors who have been there for ages to help them refresh their skills and their training so they can be able to reach out to them. That way we hope that we can still be able to reach out and to preach to them. But that's also one of the things that we are trying now to challenge and to think in the future is how much can we do in terms of church planting? Because then that's the way we can be able to reach to the wider sort of society and in a good way, and to raise. One of the challenges I said was we don't have many churches that are modeling what we are training here. So if we can have many churches that are planted in the many years to come that are actually focused on faithful Bible teaching, then we can have not only apprentices that we are training here get a place where they can be able to see this in practice, but also many other people who will never be apprentices then can be helped through good, faithful teaching in those particular churches. It's a good question. I think on one hand we would want to reach everyone, including our senior citizens and everybody out there, but we realize that we are limited in terms of the resources, in terms of our capability. So we want to pray. There are other organizations out there who are also trying to do something similar, maybe to those who are much senior. But considering our country, that majority of the population, they say is below 35 years of age, then we want to focus our energies there. But still hope that actually whatever we are doing can still trickle down to the senior citizens. And one of the ways that sometimes we have seen that is through this apprenticeship program, some of our parents and the parents of the apprentices here are actually so much moved by the work that is happening here that they sort of have a bit of rethinking about the way they think about mission, the way they think about Christianity, and the way they think about these things. But yeah, our key areas is actually to deal with these young ones, which is why we have another program that only started a couple of years ago, Transformed, which is again targeting even our young ones who are just coming out of the high school. I think my part in short is to say this work needs to continue. We need to see more people trained. We need to see more faithful gospel workers coming through the program being trained. We probably need to see more eyes of Africans being multiplied in this country, in Africa and beyond. Because the harvest, as Jesus says, is more, is plentiful, but the laborers are few. And what I can say, may we pray for the God of the harvest to send in more laborers. And as we say, as somebody has said, to pray is to ask to be involved. We pray that we will be involved in one way or the other in actually making this happen in our small, little ways. Thank you so much.